Shapataya, present thyself.
Shapataya, Ban Yahawada, Ban Yasha'ala.
Shapataya, Ban Yahawada, Ban Yasha'ala.
Yahawba Shimi Al Shabrakathum.
Yahawba Shimi Al Shabrakathum.
Yasha'ala.
Undo the scroll.
Amaja was me to stand. Halawap Panya was. I saw like one more time. Wapanya Hakwadam, which means turn and face the east. Anyone want to say Salaki? The Lord's Prayer in the Hebrew. Repeat after me. Abanawa. Shabashamai. Kodash. Hayah. Shemka. Yahweh. Malakovka. Taba'ah. Ratazayaka. Hayah. Aisha. Baha Ratazah. Kawak. Hayah. Bashamai. Nathan. Oh, Slaki. Nathanawa. Lakam. Cow. Yabam. Wasalakinawa. Kababwatinawa. Kasalakinawa. Kababwatinawa. Wala'ah. Tabaya'ayanawa. Banasaya 1. Abo. Awashayanawa. Mayan. Rad. Kaya. Laka. Amalakwa. Waha'ala. Watapara. Slaki. Aman.
In English, our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. In earth. As it is in heaven. Give us this day. Our daily bread. And forgive us our debts. As we forgive our debtors. And lead us not. Into temptation. But deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom. And the power. And the glory. Forever. So be it.
We're going to say the power. It's like a hakak, the power in the Hebrew. Repeat after me. Yahweh. Bahashim. Yahweh Shai. Baba Kasha. Nathanawa. Hakak. La'pa'ah. Kal Makala. Wakal Marawa. Hakak. Latahar. Hamatazariah. Hakak. Lahakwiya. Hamathium. Hakak. Arakawa. Hamata'ala. Hatama'ala. Lagar Shun. Ba'ashim. Yahweh Shai. The Wada Aman.
And in English, Yahweh. In the name of Yahweh Shai. Please give us the power. The power to heal. All manner of sickness. And all manner of disease. The power to cleanse the lepers. The power to raise the dead. The power against unclean spirits. To cast them out. In the name of Yahweh Shai. Thank you. So be it.
We're going to say bless Hebrew. In the Hebrew, repeat after me. Yahweh. Ba'ashim. Yahweh Shai. Baraklanawa. Wayasha'ala. Wahabaya. Sapari. Barak. Rapah. Magun. Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. The Wada Aman.
In the English, Yahweh.
Yahweh.
In the name Yahushua.
In the name Yahushua.
Bless us.
Bless us.
And Israel.
And Israel.
And the school.
And the school.
Bless.
Bless.
Heal.
Heal.
Shield.
Shield.
Protect.
Protect.
Our loved ones.
Our loved ones.
In the name Yahushua.
In the name Yahushua.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So be it.
So be it. So I got Psalms 121.
Yeah, one Psalm 121.
Psalms 121 in the Hebrew. Repeat after me. Asha'a.
Asha'a.
Ayanya.
Ayanya.
Al-Hahari.
Al-Hahari.
Mahayan.
Mahayan.
Yaba'a.
Yaba'a.
Azari.
Izari.
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 Ma'ai.
Ma'ai.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
I.S.U.P.K. Shemayim.
Shemayim.
Waharatazar.
Waharatazar.
Al-Yathan.
Al-Yathan.
Number Watts.
Number Watts.
Regalka.
Regalka.
Al-Yanawam.
Al-Yanawam.
Shamarka.
Shamarka.
Hana.
Hana.
La'a.
La'a.
Yanawam.
Yanawam.
Wala'a.
Wala'a.
Yayashun.
Yayashun.
Shawamar.
Shawamar.
Yasha'ala.
Yasha'ala.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Shamarka.
Shamarka.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Tazalka.
Tazalka.
Ayat.
Ayat.
Yamyaka.
Yamyaka.
Yawamam.
Yawamam.
Hashamash.
Hashamash.
La'a.
La'a.
Yakaraka.
Yakaraka.
Wayarak.
Wayarak.
Balayala.
Balayala.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Yashamarka.
Yashamarka.
Makarai.
Makarai.
Yashamar.
Yashamar.
Athanapashka.
Athanapashka.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Yashamar.
Yashamar.
Taza'atka.
Taza'atka.
Wabawa'atka.
Wabawa'atka.
Ma'atha.
Ma'atha.
Wa'awalam.
Wa'awalam.
Dawaraman.
Dawaraman. In English, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills.
I will lift up mine eyes to the hills.
From whence cometh my help?
From whence cometh my help?
My help coming from Yahweh.
My help coming from Yahweh.
Which made heaven and earth.
Which made heaven and earth.
He will not suffer thy foot to be moved.
He will not suffer thy foot to be moved.
He that keepeth thee.
He that keepeth thee.
Will not slumber.
Will not slumber.
Behold.
Behold.
He that keepeth Israel.
He that keepeth Israel.
Shall neither slumber nor sleep.
Shall neither slumber nor sleep.
Yahweh is thy keeper.
Yahweh is thy keeper.
Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand.
Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand.
The sun shall not smite thee by day.
The sun shall not smite thee by day.
Nor the moon by night.
Nor the moon by night.
Yahweh shall preserve thee.
Yahweh shall preserve thee
from all evil.
From all evil.
He shall preserve thy soul.
He shall preserve thy soul.
Yahweh shall preserve thy going out.
Yahweh shall preserve thy going out.
And thy coming in.
And thy coming in.
From this time forth.
From this time forth.
And even forevermore.
And even forevermore.
So be it.
So be it. We're going to say Psalms 83 in Hebrew. Repeat after me. Salaki. Alahayim.
Alahayim.
Al-Damayalaka.
Al-Damayalaka.
Al-Dakarash.
Al-Dakarash.
Wa al-Dashakwat.
Wa al-Dashakwat.
Al. Kayahanna.
Kayahanna.
Abawadyaka.
Awayabyaka.
Ahawat-Saki. Ahamayam. Ahamayam.
Yeah.
Ahamayam one. Mahama Yawan.
Yahama Yawan. Yahama Yawan.
Yahama Yawan.
Yahama Yawan.
Wamashanayaka.
Wamashanayaka.
Nasha'awa.
Nasha'awa.
Ra'ash.
Ra'ash.
Al-Aimaka.
Al-Aimaka.
Ya'iriyamwa.
Ya'iriyamwa.
Sawad.
Sawad.
Wayata Ya'itazawa.
Wayata Ya'itazawa.
Al-Tazapawanyaka.
Al-Tazapawanyaka.
Amawa. Amarawa.
Amarawa.
Lakawa.
Lakawa.
Wanakakidam.
Wanakakidam.
Magawa.
Magaya.
Wala'a.
Wala'a.
Yazakar.
Yazakar.
Sham Yasha'ala.
Sham Yasha'ala.
Yakadwa.
Yakadwa.
Al-Yaka.
Al-Yaka.
Barya.
Barya.
Yakarath. Yakarathwa.
Yakarathwa.
Alahaya. Ahalia.
Ahalia.
Adawam.
Adawam.
Wayasha Al-Alim. Wayashama Alim.
Wayashama Alim.
Mawa'aba.
Mawa'aba.
Wahagari.
Wahagari.
Gabal.
Gabal.
Wa'aimawan.
Wa'aimawan.
Wa'aimalak.
Wa'aimalak.
Palashah.
Palashah.
Imashabia.
Imashabia.
Tazawar.
Tazawar.
Gamashawar.
Gamashawar.
Nalawak.
Nalawak.
Imam.
Imam.
Hayawak.
Hayawak.
Zarai. Zarawai.
Zarawai.
Labanya Lawat.
Labanya Lawat.
Salah.
Salah.
I.S.H.A.L.A.M.
I.S.H.A.L.A.M.
Kamadian.
Kamadian.
Kasara Sarya Ra'a.
Kasai Sarah.
Kasai Sarya.
Kasai Sarah.
Kayabian.
Kayabian.
Kana Banakar.
Banakar.
Poyashuan.
Poyashuan. Nashamadwa.
Ba'ayan da'ira.
Ba'ayan da'arwa.
Hayawa.
Daman.
La'adama.
La'adama.
Shayatamwa.
Shayatamwa.
Nadayamadwa. Nadayamawa. Ka'ira. Wakazaba.
Select it. One more time.
Wakazaba.
One more time.
Wakazaba.
Wakazabak.
Wakazamani.
Wakazamani.
Counter Sayakamwa. Ashar. Amarwa. Naya Rasha. Lanawa. Na'awa. Alahaya. Shayatamwa. Kagagala. Kakwash. Lapanya Raka. Ka'ash. Daba Ira. Wakala Haba. Thalahat. Haryam. Khan. Thoradatma. Basa Irika. Wabasa Wapathka. The Halam. The Bahalam. Mala'a. Panyaham. Qualawan. Wayabakwashua. Shamka. Yahweh. Yabashua. Wayaba'awa. Ajai. Wayakaparawa. Wayabadwa. Wayadaiwa. Kaya. Athak. Shamka. Yahweh. Labaka. Al-Yawan. Al-Kaharaza. The water Aman.
In English, keep not thy silence. O Yahweh. Hold not thy peace. And be not still. O Yahweh. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult. And they that hate thee. Have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel. Against thy people. And consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said. Come. And let us cut them off. From being a nation. That the name of Israel. May be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together. With one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom. And the Ishmaelites. Of Moab.
The
Hagarim. Gebal and Ammon. And Amalek. The Philistines. With the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher is also joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot. Salah. Do unto them. As unto the Midianites. As to Sisera. As to Jabin. At the brook of Kishon. Which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Made their nobles like a rat. And like Zed. Yea. All their princes. As Sabbath. And as Amunah. Who said, let us take to ourselves the house of Yahweh in possession. Oh my power. Make them like a wheel. As a stubble before the wind. As a fire burneth the wood. And as a flame setteth the mountains on fire. So persecute them. With thy tempest. And make them afraid. With thy storm. Fill their faces with shame. That they may seek thy name. O Yahweh. Let them be confounded. And trouble forever. Yea. Let them be put to shame. And perish. That men may know. That thou. Whose name alone. Is Yahweh. Art the most high. Over all the earth. So be it.
With that sar, which means to turn. Yashabi, which means to be seated.
All right, here, men up here, Yashabi, which means be seated. We're going to continue on where we left off last week. And that's in 1 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 17 through 23. We're going to start off in Hebrew. 1 second. Let me get there with you. How confident are you in the Hebrew, Shabbat?
I can do a little bit of Hebrew.
All right, we're going to start it off with you. We're going to read the first two verses, 17 and 18. And Kagar, can you pick it up after that?
Okay.
Okay, all right. 17, all right. Chapter 9, verse 17. Go ahead.
17. Come. The book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 9, verse 17. Oh, that's it. Book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 9, verse 17. Wahashai Mayam. Shalom. Why Shalom. Havarash. Verse 18. Wa'ai. Hana. Bashaira. Hamalak. Mazaraka. Hama. Haisha Ira Young. Lamak. Nawath. Banya. Lawyer.
For anybody who knows that lawyer is Hebrew for Levi. If you could, Baba Shah, pick up where you left off, verse 19.
Come. Verse 19 in the Hebrew. Washalawash, bun, kwawara, bun, abaya sap, bun, parak, wa'a kayawa, labayaf, abayawa, hakwa rakayam, al, mala'aka, ha'ai bawada, ha'ai bawada, shamaraya, Hasa Paryam, La'a Hasapian, La'a La'a Hala, Al, Wa'aba Dayahum, Al.
Bathyahum.
Wa'abathyam, Al.
Wa'abathyahum.
Oh, Wayabathyahum, Al. Makana, Yahweh, Shamaraya, Hamabawa, verse 20. Wapaya Nakasa, Bun, Alaizar, Nagayad, Haya, Al Yahum, Lapa Nayam, Yahweh. Lepunyam. Yahweh. Imawa. Verse 21. Zachariah. Bun. Mashallah. Shayah. Shar. Sha'ira. Salaki. Pathak. Lahawa. Mawa'ai. Verse 22. Kalama. Habara. Warayam. Lasha Irayam. Basa Payam. Ma'atayam. Washanaya. Ishar. Hama. Bakatazarayaham. Hathaya Kasham. Hama. Yasad. Dawa Yad. Washama Wa'ala. Hara'ah. Ba'a Mawa Ba'amawa Natham. Verse 23. Waham. Wabanaya Hum. Wabanyahum. Al. Hasha'ai Riyam. Labayah. Yahweh. Labayah. Ha'ahal. Lama Shemarawah.
That's it. Now we're going to get that in the English, and that is the 1 Chronicles 9 and 17.
The book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 9, verse 17. And the porters were Shalom and Akkad and Talmud and Ahiman and their brethren. Shalom was the chief, verse 18, who hitherto waited in the king's gate eastward. They were porters in the companies of the children of Levi. Verse 19, and Shalom, the son of Kor, the son of Ebiasaph, the son of Kor, and his brethren, and of the house of his father, the Korahites, were over the work of the service, keepers of the gates of the tabernacle, and their fathers, being over the host of the Lord, were keepers of the entry. Verse 20. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, was the ruler over them in times past, and the Lord was with him. Verse 21. And Zechariah, and the son of Meshelemiah, was porter of the door of the tabernacles of the congregation. Verse 22. All these which were chosen to be porters in the gates were 212. These were reckoned by their genealogy in their villages, whom David and Samuel, the seer, did ordain in their set office.
Real quick, the porters. Anybody know what the porters are in this context? If anybody's been to a Christian church, you would see the so-called ushers. They're the porters. But the reason for the porters will tell you in that very same verse. Read in the middle of verse 22 where it says right after there were 212.
Oh God. These were reckoned by their genealogy.
Right there. These were reckoned by them. So they had to, just like when we call it a reader up here, we have to reckon who they are according to the genealogy. And we usually have either a staff or some sort of weapon that we hold up, because not anybody can come into the congregation, not anybody can come up to here. You know what I'm saying? So they were reckoned by the genealogy. They had to prove their lineage, who they were. And if they weren't, belonging to Israel, those porters fell on them. Not anybody can come into our place. Yes.
So ushers are bastardized security. They kind of messed
them
up.
Soft, yeah. Yeah, them soft. The Christian church softens and weakens everything that the Most High puts out. They're so, I just remember when I was coming up, just being in there, I'm just like, oh, just soft, they come in and they actually, teach the ushers, anybody can come in, anybody welcome in. I bet the usher welcomed in Dylan Roof Storm with open arms. Come on in, brother. Yeah, sit down. You need something? Let's without even vetting who they were. According to the Most High, you had to prove who you were, and if you couldn't prove who you were, you wasn't coming in. Did I answer your question?
Okay.
All right. Let's keep going.
How come? Verse 23. So they and their children had the oversight of the gates of the house of the Lord, namely the house of the tabernacle by wards.
See right there, it's saying, there's a reason why we have gates. To keep what's out, and to keep what's in safe. You know what I'm saying? And the porters were, over those gates. They wouldn't let anybody, and they said, namely, the base of the boundaries of the tabernacle, the Most High's place where He put His name. You know what I'm saying? Where we go just to learn our culture, to learn our rules, regulations, and to learn how to be brothers to our people. Nobody can come up in there. Nobody who wasn't anybody could come up in there. And the Most High established that, and He's just we're going over, who were the porters. And this time, in this time, it was the tribe of Levi, and they were over the works of the Most High. This was their job. So it wasn't you think of priests today, the worldly priests, the Christian church priests, they're nothing like a guard. They're no guard. You know what I'm saying? They're weak, they're soft, they're feminine. I just seen a report, slack it for being a little longer, but I just seen a report where it was something like 3,000 priests molested over 216,000 kids from the 50s till now in France, in just one country. You know what I'm saying? Over 3,000 priests. That couldn't have happened in Israel. That didn't happen in Israel. There's laws against that. You had some?
It's like it was 115,000 priests. Yeah, you right, 200,000 children.
In France?
In France.
In France. Need I say more? Yeah, the Christian church molests kids. Come on. How can it be that widespread and the head of the church, which is the Vatican, not know anything about it? They knew about it, and they covered it up. So they're condoning it. They're teaching priests to be child molesters. And they're teaching the people who they're supposed to be, leading, to just let it happen. It's a shame. It's a shame. We're going to continue up here. 1 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 24. Let's continue on Shabbat. Read the first two verses, Baba Kashar.
Oh, God,
24 and verse 25.
The book of 1 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 24 in the Hebrew. La'ar ba'ai. Rawa kawath.
Rawat.
Wath.
Yep.
Yawa. Hashai Wayam. Mazarak. Yama. Tazak. Wana. Wanagaba. Verse 25. Wa'ak Yaham. But Kataza Yaham. Habawa.
One more time.
Labawa.
Labawa.
Labawa. Lasha Ba'ith Hayam Yum Ma'ith Al Ath Aitha Ain Allah.
All right, I'm gonna take over. Verse 26. Kaya Fa'a Mawana Hama A Raba'itha Ga Baraya Ha Sha'ariyam Hama Ha Lawayam Wahayawa Al Ha Lashak Watha Wa'ith Slakia Wa'al Ha Aratazar Watha Bayath Ha Alaha Slaka Ha Alahayam. Verse 27. Wa Sabaya Bawath Bayath Ha Alahayam Yala Yanawa Kaya Al Yaham Masha Marath Waham Al Ha Mapathka Wa Labakra La Rabaka Slakia La Barak Slak La Bakwar. Verse 28. Wa Maham Al La Kalya Ha'ai Bawada Kaya Bamasapar Bayawam Wabama Sapar Watazar Yawam. Verse 29. Wamaham Mama Nayam Al Hakalyam Wa'al Kalya Ha Qudash Wa'al Ha Salath Waha Yayan Waha Shamana Waha Laba Wana Waha Bashamyam. Verse 30. Wamana Banya Haka Hanayam Rakwakaya Ha Maratha Labashya La Bashamyam. That's it. Continue on. Verse was that 24? 24. Continue on 24 to verse 30.
Come. The book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 9, verse 24. In 4 quarters were the porters toward the east, west, north, and south. Verse 25. And their brethren, which were in the villages, were to come after 7 days from time to time with them. Verse 26. After these Levites, the 4 chief porters were in their first set office and were over the chambers and treasuries of the house of God. Verse 27. Verse 27. And they lodged around about the house of God, because the charge was upon them, and the opening thereof every morning pertaineth to them. Verse 28. And certain of them had the charge of the ministering vessels, and they should bring them in and out by tale. Verse 29. Some of them were appointed to oversee the vessels and all the instruments of the sanctuary, and the fine flour, and the wine, and the oil, and the frankincense, and the spices.
Hold on 1 second. So it's saying that the porters, they had charge over the house of the Most High, and they would come in, they would open up, and they would set up, just like brothers come in a little earlier and they set up for class, and they set up for the high holy days, and all the instruments and the oils and the spices, and the frankincense and the myrrh and the wine. They're in charge of all this. You know what I'm saying? They set up the house of the Most High for the people to come in, and when the people leave, they break it down and lock up the house of the Most High. So if anybody's saying we are not rehearsing the righteous acts that are actually in the scripture, they're a lie. This is the home of the truth. We're actually doing what our forefathers past are doing according to the scripture. So if anybody wonders why we're actually doing all this stuff, it's because it's actually in the scripture. Keep going.
Come.
Verse 30.
Come. And some of the sons of the priests made the ointment of the spices.
That's it. Most High Christ. And we're going to continue on in the English, in the Hebrew. Kagar, if you could give me the first 5, and then Shapat, you're going to end it off with 36 and 37.
Come.
In the Hebrew, 1 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 31. Wama tataya mana halawayam hawa'a habakawar la shalam hakwara kaya ba'ama wana al ma'aisha hakara saki haka bayat bathyam. Verse 32. Waman banya hakwa hathya man akaya hum al lakam hamai rakaf lahakayan Shabbat. Verse 33. Wa'ala hamasha rayam ra'ashaya abawath lalawa yum balashika batayarian patayarian kaya yawamam wala ya la al yaham bamala aka. Verse 34. Alaha ra'ashaya ha'abawath lalawayam lata la dathma ra'ashayam alaha yashabawa bayara wa shalom. Verse 35. Waba gaba'aywan yashabawa abaya gaba'aywan ya'ay wa'ala washam ashatawa ma'ay kaha.
Verse 36. Wabanawa. Wabanwa. Habakawar. Ibadwan. Wataza war. Wakoyam. Wakoyash. Waba'al. Wanar. Wanabad. Verse 37. Wagadyar. Wagadwar. Wa'akad Yawa. Wazakariya. Wama kwa layath. Wama kwa la wath. That's it.
Most High Christ. That's 37. I remember when I was first coming into UPK, and I was a young man, and I was I kept hearing, we speak Hebrew right here. We speak Hebrew. Kind of, went over my head, but yeah, we speak Hebrew. I actually got on the stage and whatnot, and I seen brothers looking at some strange letters. Like, how in the world? What is that? What is that? You actually reading that? What is that? And then it like really dawned on me, like, we are taking back our culture. You know what I'm saying? We, most of us is from the hood, and only other language we really, only other language we really, having contact with it is kind of like Spanish. You know what I'm saying? And that's, just the way you speak it, it kind of flows and whatnot. But when we actually come up in here and we're actually, reading and speaking Hebrew, did you even think you was gonna be reading the Hebrew before you came up in here? You knew that?
Yeah.
You knew you was gonna be speaking Hebrew?
I saw other people speaking Hebrew.
Oh, that was when you was watching. That was when you knew about the truth.
Oh yeah, when I knew about the truth. But you said before you.
I was like, the Lord was with you. He knew he was going to be speaking truth most high in Christ. But me, as for me, I didn't know I was going to be speaking Hebrew. But we, we come from all walks of life when the Most High actually calls us in here. Most of it, I can say that from the people I labor with, none of us really knew that we actually be speaking and reading this, this Hebrew. When I was taking my test, it's like it'd be getting a little off, When I was taking my test, I was talking to Officer Gazak. He was like, man, I love, learning Hebrew. And I was like, I put that to the side and let me learn the other stuff first. And then I was going to come back to the Hebrew because it looked like, how a brick wall is, how the spaces in between. That's how the Hebrew looked like to me. I had no idea what the Syrian, it looked like that to me. I was like, I'm supposed to learn that? Most High in Christ, we're learning it now. You know what I'm saying? We're learning now. And we're actually, getting better. Every week that we come here, and we speak the holy tongue, the separate tongue, we're actually learning our tongue, our language, the way we speak. And even though, if you actually break down some of this stuff in Hebrew, how the way we call each other, how the way we talk to each other, we speak like that in the bastard language of English, same way in Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? Well, there's no word for wife. Captain Shaw was breaking this down last week. There's no word for wife. It's like my woman. There's no word for a husband. It's like the man. And there's multiple words. There's multiple meanings for that very same word. And that's how we talk in the bastard English. But Esau doesn't talk like that. You know what I'm saying? We talk like that. Getting off Marvin, let's get back on to what we were learning. Salakia. And where are we?
Verse 38. So.
Verse 38. Did we read verse 38?
We didn't read it. We got to read the Hebrew.
No, we're going to read the English right now, 31 to 37, right? All right, so go ahead and read the English.
The book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 9, verse 31. And Mattathiah, one of the Levites, who was the firstborn of Shalom and the Korahite.
Shalom
the Korahite, had the set office over the things that were made in the pans. Verse 32. And the other of their brethren of the sons of the Korathites were over the shewbread to prepare it every Sabbath.
Right here, just like we're preparing, we're doing the holy acts. Every morning we get the showbread. The showbread is baked every week that we come here. It's baked that day. You know what I'm saying? And it's right here in the scriptures. There was a man put over it, and that was his job. Just like is someone in his job to go out and get that showbread. And I want to say the water to Trooper Shabbat for actually going out and getting it. We had a minor setback, and Trooper Shabbat stepped up and got what was needed. I want to say the water to the sisters for bringing in the food. We're gonna get into that as soon as possible. Thawad, she comes in every week. The sisters come in every week without fail. This is some of the best food I get, throughout the week. It's probably, the best meal I get throughout the week. So I want to thank you and the other sisters for coming in right on time every single week without fail. So why we don't know what's going. It could be 1,000, a million things going on in your sisters' lives, but y'all come in here and help us, be a helpmate to us, and so that we can go out and do what's needed of us of the Most High. The water again, sister. All right, let's continue on, Papa Shaw.
Come. Okay. Verse 33. And these were the singers, chief of the fathers of the Levites, who remaining in the chambers were free, for they were employed in that work day and night. Verse 34. These chief fathers of the Levites were chief throughout their generations. These dwelt at Jerusalem. Verse 35. And in Gibeon dwelt the father of Gibeon, Jehiel, whose wife was named Maacah. Verse 36. And his firstborn son Abdon, then Zor, and Kish, and Baal, and Ner, and Nadab. Verse 37. And Gedor, and Ahio, and Zachariah, and Miklah.
All right, Most High in Christ. We're going to continue on in the Hebrew. I'm going to start with 38. I'm going to go through 41. No, I'm going to go to 42, and you're going to get 43 and 44.
Okay.
Sure. This is 1 Chronicles chapter 38, chapter 9, verse 38. All right, here we are. Well, Maqual Watha, Ha Walal Yad, Ath, Shama'am, Wa'ap, Hum, Nagad, Akayahum, Yashabwa, Baya, Rawashalam, Aim, Akayahum. It's 39. Wanar, Ha Walayad, Ath, Kwayash, Wa Kwayash, Ha Walayad, Ath, Sha'awal, Wa Sha'awal, Ha Walayad, Ath, Ha Yana, Ha Slakia, Yaha, Wanath, Wanathan, Wa'ath, Malakia, Shawa'ai, Wa'ath, Abai, Abayadan, Yanad, Daba, Wa'ath, Ashaba'al, verse 40, Wabun, Ha Wanath, Ha Wanathan, Mariab, Baal, Wa Maraya, Baal, Ha Walayad, Ath, Mayaka, verse 41, Wabanya, Mayaka, Payath Wana, Wamalak, Wathak Ra'ai, verse 42, Akaz, Waha Walayad, Ath, Ya'ira, Wa Ya'ira, Walayalad, Ath, Imath, Almath, Almatha, Slaket, Wa'ath, Mawatha, Wa'ath, Zamariah, Wa Zamariah, Walayad, Ath, Ma Wataza'ah. 43.
Verse 43. Wama wa Tazar. Hawalayad. Ath. Benaiah. Bana Aya. Warapaya. Warapaya. Banwa. Ala Aisha. Ala Aisha. Banwa. Atazala. Atazal. Banwa. Verse 44. Wala Tazal. Wala Atazal. Shasha. Banyam. Wa'ala. Shama Wathma. Izara ya Palm. Bakarwa. Waya Shamai Waya Shema Aya. Washa I Raya. Wa I Badya. Wakana Isla Banya Atazal.
Most High Christ. Continue on in English. 38 through 44.
Book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 9, verse 38. And Mikloth begat Shemiah, and they also dwelt with their brethren at Jerusalem, over against their brethren. Verse 39. And Ner begat Kish, and Kish begat Saul. And Saul begat Jonathan, and Malchishua, and Abinadab, and Ishbaal. Verse 40. And the son of Jonathan was Meribbaal, and Meribbaal begat Micah. Verse 41. And the sons of Micah were Pithon and Melech, and Tariah, and Ahaz. Verse 42. And Ahaz begat Jerah, and Jerah begat Elameth, and Asmaveth, and Zimri, and Zimri begat Moza. Verse 43. And Moza begat Benia, and Raphael, his son. Elisha, his son. Azul, his son. Verse 44. And Azul had 6 sons, whose names were these: Azrakam, Bacharu, and Ishmael, and Shearai, and Obadiah, and Hanan. These were the sons of Azar.
We're going to continue on in the Hebrew. Let's get the first two. 1 Chronicles chapter 10, 1 through 7.
Common Council. Book of 1 Chronicles chapter 10, verse 1. Wapala Shakyam Nala Kamwa Baya Shah Baya Shah.
It's like, hold on 1 second. When you see like a wa or a la or a ba, that's just a prefix. So take that ba off, and what's that word?
Yasha'ala.
All right, now put it together.
Yasha'ala.
Most High in Christ.
What?
No sweat.
Waya Wayanas, Ayash, Yashalam, Mapa, Wapanaya, Wapanya, Palashafyan, Palawa, Kalala Yum, Bahar, Gullah Ba'ai, verse 2. Wayad Bakwawa, Palawakim,
One more time.
Palashathim,
Yeah. Most high Christ.
Akaria, Sha'awal.
Real quick, Sha'awal is Hebrew for Saul. Keep on.
Wa'akaria, Banyua, Wayakawa, Palashakim, Ath, Yawan, Yawanathan, Wa'ath, Abayada, Abayana, Da, Wa'ath, Malakia, Shawa'ai, Banya, Sha'awal.
Most high Christ. Most high Christ. Still reading, warrior. Keep it going. Keep it going. Yeah. No.
Okay, kind of calm. Verse 3. Wata Kabad, Hamala Kama, Al, Sha'awal, Waya Mataza Hawa, Hamawa Bayam, Bakwashaf, Wayakal, Mana, Haya Warrior, verse 4. Waya Amar, Sha'awal, Al, Nasha'ah, Kalayawa, Shalak, Karabak, Wada Kwaranaya, Baha, Pun, Yaba Awa, Ha'ai Walayam, Ha'ala, Wahata Al Lalawa, Baya, Wala'a, Abba, Nasha, Kalayawa, Kaya, Yarai, Ma'ad, Wayakwak, Sha'awal, Hakara, Wayapala, Al Yaha, verse 5. Waya Ra'ah, Nasha, Kalayawa, Kaya, Matha, Sha'awal, Wayapal, Gum, Hawa, Al, Hakara, Wayamath, verse 6. Wayamath, Sha'awal, Washalashaf, Banyawa, it's like a Banyawa, Wakal, it's like a Waka, Wakal, Bayathwa, Yakadwa, Matawa, verse 7. Wayara'awa, Kal, Ayash, Yasha'ala, Ishar, Ba'aimak, Kaya, Nasawa, Wakaya, Mathawa, Sha'awal, Wabanayawa, Oslaki, Wabanyua, Waya I Zabwa, Ivaya Hum, Wayana Sawa, Waya Ba'awa, Palashatayam, Palashathium, Waya Shabawa, Baham.
Most High Christ. We're going to continue on in English. First Chronicles 10, 1 through 7.
Book of First Chronicles, chapter 10, verse 1. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. Verse 2. The Philistines followed hard after Saul and after his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. Verse 3. The battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was wounded of the archers. Verse 4.
Real quick. Does anybody remember what time this was when Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua died? Shabbat?
Yeah, this is when King, he wasn't king at first. David had already went. He was on the side of the Philistines already, and I can't remember like a specific time, but I remember David was on the side of the Philistines. He was like, on sides with them, and they had took him in. And
was he on that side?
He was in their country or something, like in their land, and it was I wouldn't say he was on their side, but he had his own little separate part or something. He was working with somebody, one of their kings or something like that.
I know what you're saying. So what you're saying is he was on a run from Saul. Saul was seeking to kill David, and David had to seek shelter from somebody else. One of the times he fled into the Philistines' country, and they took him in because they thought he was crazy. He went before the king, and he was acting mad. He was, slobbering all over himself, and he basically made a fool of himself so that the king would think he's not a threat to him and his people. So they like, all right, man, just go over there. Just go over there. Don't bother nobody. Everybody don't bother. This dude's crazy. He's just out of his mind. Let him be. But this was the time when Saul was after David. He spent a considerable amount of resources and men to trying to track David down when he really had real enemies. And because of that, the Lord wasn't with him at this point because he took his spirit off of Saul and put it on David. Had he been obeying orders, none of this, I think it's safe to say the Lord's spirit would be on him. If he had followed the Lord would have been on him. And the story would have been a little bit different. But he disobeyed orders, and it actually says, the Most High put a spirit on him to go against, David. Because of that, these things happen. You got a question, sis?
Yeah, so this was after Jonathan and David had, I know Jonathan was trying to help David out because he knew his father was after him. Mm-hmm. So this was after that time period.
Yes. This was after that. This was well after, because that whole time period when Saul was chasing David had been quite some time. He was on the run for I want to say some years. He was on the run. It wasn't just like a 2-month campaign where he was just going from cave to cave, forest to forest. He was after him for a long time, and the whole time Jonathan was trying to help David, and yeah. So did that answer your question? Okay. Most High Christ. Anybody else have any questions? All right, let's continue on reading where we were left off at.
Come. Verse 4. Then said Saul to his armor bearer, draw thy sword, and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was so afraid. So Saul took his sword and fell upon him.
So what does that mean? Does anybody break down the scripture real quick?
Kind of sound like Saul wanted his armor bearer to kill him because he knew that he was gonna get killed. So he basically committed suicide.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, yes, but the full spirit of it was he knew that if the Philistines got him, they would have paraded him around and did all sorts of unspeakable things to him while he was alive, and possibly his dead body as well. Knowing these heathens, you know, especially them Africans, they be doing some wild, funky stuff. You know what I'm saying? So he was like, they're not gonna take me alive, right? So he told his armor bearer, hey, you know, kill me before they come and get me. Because he was sorely wounded. They had wounded him, killed his sons. His army was falling apart. So he told his sword bearer to do it. Kind of like this. I'm not even gonna say that. But his armor bearer was like, "Nah, I'm not gonna do that. You're still my king. I'm supposed to be here to protect you." Right? He didn't do it. He was afraid to do it. So he took it upon himself, and he fell on the sword. Keep going.
Verse 5. And when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise on the sword and died.
He did the same thing. He was like, man, these heathens, if they get me, they're gonna do the same thing what they did to him. They ain't taking me alive. I know we've heard of, you know, brothers, you know, in their act of desperation, they come and say, you know, you've heard people say, I'm not going back to jail. And they fight it out until the bitter death, because they believe that death is better than what's waiting, the hell that's waiting them on the inside of that prison. You know what I'm saying? The unfair, unruly conditions that our oppressor puts us through. Our brothers and sisters believe that death is way better than that hellish condition that they're going to put us in. And it that's biblical. It says it right here. Our former king, you know, Saul did it, and then his armor bearer, who just seen him do that, did it himself. Keep reading.
Verse 6. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and all his house died together. Verse 7. And when all the men of Israel that were in the valley saw that they fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, then they forsook their cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them.
All right. Philistines came in and took our stuff after we ran away. Let's continue on reading. What is it? Verse 8? Verse 8. I'm gonna get the first 5. Wahaya, Mama Ratha, Wa Yaba'awa, Palashathiam, Lapa Sha'ai, Lapashat, Ath, Hakal, Layam, Waya Mataza'awa, Ath, Shawa'al, Wa'ath, Banyawa, Na Palaya, Bahar, Galaba'ai, verse 9. Waya Pashayat Hawa. Waya Sha'awa, Ath, Ra'ashwa, Wa'ath, Kalyawa, Waya Shalakwa, Ba'arataza, Palashathiam, Sabayab, La Bashar, Ath, I Tazabaham, Wa'ath, Ha'aim, verse 10. Waya Shayamwa, Wayashamwa, Ath, Kalyawa, Slakia, Kalyawa, Khan, Bayath, Alahayim, Wa'ath, Galdathawa. Thaqua Iwa. Bayath. The Wana. Verse 11. Waya Shema Iwa. Kal. Yaba. Yasha. Yabayash. Yabayash. Galai. Ath. Kal. Ashar. Aishawa. Palashathian. La Shawal. Verse 12. Wayakwa Wamwa. Kal. Ayash. Kayal. Waya Sha'awa. Ath. Gawapath. Shawa'al. Wa'ath. Gawapath. Banyawa. Waya Baya'a Wam. Yabayasha. Waya Kwabarawa. Ath. Tazai Mawathyaham. Thakath. Ha'Allah. Bayabash. Waya Tazo Wamwa. Shaba'itha. Yum. Yeah. Get 13, 14.
Come. Verse 13. Wayamath. Wa'Iwala.
No.
I mean, Sha'awal. But my Ilawa. Ashar. My eye. By Yahweh. The bar. Yahweh. Ashar. La'ah. Shamar. Wagab. Lasha'ab. Lasha'awal. Ba'awa. Lateral wash.
No sign Christ. Continue on that in the English. Oh, you did 14? All right.
Wala'ah. The Rosh. By Yahweh. It's a lot. Hawa. Wayasa. Ath. Hamala Waka. Hamala Waka. Ka'a. Did I say it right? Hamala Waka.
Yeah, that's it.
Lot of Yah. Bond. Yasha.
All right, let's continue on in the English. Chapter 10, verse 8.
Come, book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 10, verse 8. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. Verse 9. And when they had stripped him, they took his head and his armor and sent into the land of the Philistines round about to carry tidings unto their idols and to the people.
See what I'm talking about? These nasty Philistines. What the hell are you doing carrying around a human head? Like, are you serious to put it on display? Goddamn heathen. Slack it. Keep going.
Come. Verse 10. And they put his armor in the house of their gods and fastened his head in the temple of their God. Verse 11.
It's like they're gonna pay for this. They're gonna pay for this. You dare touch the head of one of the Most High's anointed? Are you serious? And then, man, y'all gonna pay for this. I'm getting mad about this. This is one of the reasons. See, this is one of the reasons why we must go back into our records and remember what they did to us. Had we did that, Saul would have obeyed the commandment where he was supposed to demolish, totally kill off the Amalekites, and he would have still had the kingdom. If he would have remembered this, remember what they had done to us, he would have totally killed everything. He would have followed the order when the Most High told him to kill every man, woman, child, horse, goat, sheep, everything. Lay everything to waste. Burn everything. He would have followed that order if he would have just remembered this. Just like how I'm just getting angry about how the way they treated us, how the way they treated Saul, he would have remembered how the way the Amalekites treated us when we were coming out of Egypt. You got something?
Like the temple of Dagon, is that's that God they had with the fish head, where they put the Ark of the Covenant, and when they woke up the next morning, the Dagon head was off, it broke.
I want to. I know what you're saying. You're talking about when I want to say it was the Philistines. They stole the Ark of the Covenant from us, and their God, man-made God, fell off and it broke off, and they got what was it? They got hemorrhoids. They got hemorrhoids. It was like hey, take this from me. We don't want it. Take it from us. I'm not 100% sure it was Dagon. It was one of their their gods, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'm not even going to say it is definitely this one. You got a question?
Okay. Now, Salaki, if I may, this is like a form of mockery too, because when I was doing research on us back in slavery, they used to catch the slaves that used to run from the plantations. Mm-hmm. And after they kill them, they'd chop their head off, and they have a valley of sticks, and they'd put their head on them
on pikes,
and they'd show the slaves that they killed. So it's like a form of mockery.
And it's supposed to instill fear in us, if we get caught, this is going to be us, as a warning to, man. See, we need to remember this stuff.
They got the pictures on the internet too. You can actually see it. They got the pictures that they used to make as postcards to pass on different slave masters to show the achievements of catching these runaway slaves that they couldn't find for a long time, and make an example of them by putting their heads on the spike sticks.
And they made postcards out of this. I've never seen it, but I totally believe it, because they had us us lynched, and people, men, women, and children gathered around, smiling, taking a picture of our dead, burning bodies, hanging bodies, and they sent it making a postcard. See, this is stuff we need to remember. So much, there's as much as we went through back in the 30s and 40s during Jim Crow. There was a solace in knowing exactly who your enemy was, who your enemy is. Right now, because of segregation, one of the worst things that could have happened to us, we believe that there are equals. We believe that everybody can change. When no, they are still doing the exact same thing to us back then, back in King Saul's time, back in slavery time, back in Jim Crow time, to right now. You know what I'm saying? We need to remember these acts so that we know exactly who our enemy is, who the Most High calls our enemies. If the Most High calls these people our enemies, who are we to say that we should be friends with them? Who the hell are we? We ain't nobody to the Most High. If the Most High tells us this is your enemy, we need to listen to our Father. He is doing what is best for us, and if we don't listen to him, we're going to suffer the curses that we're suffering right now. It's because we're expressly not listening to our Father, our head, our power. As soon as we get that in our thick skulls, we can be rulership. We'll be in rulership forever. Christ will come back. The kingdom of heaven will be here, and justice will be served from that time forward. Keep going. Where are we? got a little long, Slack. My soapbox.
I believe it's verse 12.
Verse 11. Verse 11. And when all Jabesh Gilead heard all that the Philistines had done to Saul, verse 12, they arose, all the valiant men, and took away the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons, and brought them to Jabesh, and buried their bones under the oak in Jabesh, and fasted 7 days. Verse 13.
And fasted 7 days. Anybody fasted more than 3 days? That's fasting 3 days is tough. You know what I'm saying? These brothers fasted 7 days. That is dedication right there. You know what I'm saying? They fasted, for the death of their king and the king's sons and what all their bodies they went through and what all their bodies went through. These were some valiant and brave men that went into the land of the Philistine, of the enemy, into what is it? What do they call it? They went behind enemy lines and got the bodies of the former king and the princess, and brought them back and gave them proper burials. And then they fasted 7 days. You had something, sis?
So these men that took Saul's body. So are these Saul's men? Because didn't the men separate between Saul and the ones that were with David?
Yes, they did separate from Saul and from David. So you asking it, is this David's men or is it Saul's men?
Is this Saul's men that did this? Or
No, it's like the Philistine. She was.
Are you saying, or is it the heathens?
No, not the heathens.
So you're saying is it Saul's men or is it Saul's men or David's men?
Right, or did they come together at this point?
They did not come together because afterwards, David still had to fight Saul's men, because there was a remnant of Saul's men that was still loyal to Saul, and they wanted that house to rule over Israel. One of the reasons why King David wasn't able to build the house of the Most High, because he had a lot of blood on his hands, and the blood that mattered wasn't the blood of the Philistines, of all the heathens that he was fighting. It was the blood of his people, because he fought against the Benjamites, who were because Saul was a Benjamite. He fought against the people who was backing Saul and still wanted to back Saul and his family. So he had to fight to put them in check.
Okay.
So they didn't come together after Saul died.
Okay.
He had to fight to put the kingdom in place. Okay. And because of that, he wasn't able to build the temple himself. He had to pass it on to his son. So whose men these were? One, we know it's Israelites, because they call them valiant men. The Bible does not call any other race of people valiant. These men were valiant, and no other heathen is going to do this for us. We're going to have to do that for ourselves. As far as whose men it was, I'm not sure. I can ask somebody, one of the men above me, who this was, and I can get an answer back to you next week. No sweat, sis. Is that all?
Verse 13.
All right, keep going.
Verse 13. So Saul died for his transgressions, which he committed against the Lord, even against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it.
14.
Verse 14. And inquired not of the Lord. Therefore he slew him and turned the kingdom onto David, the son of Jesse. So
right here, it was a law saying that we're supposed to put to death these people who the conjurers, what's that chick's name? Call me now. Cleo, Miss Cleo. You know what I'm saying? Salakia. She wasn't supposed to be that in Israel, and he wanted to have some counsel. He wanted to get some counsel. Samuel was dead. He trusted Samuel. he had been long past, so he went to a familiar spirit. He went to one of these, Cleo people, and hid himself, disguised himself so that person wouldn't know who he was. She actually could talk to spirits, and once she came in contact with him, and she inquired of him, she was like, "Oh, you're King Saul. You're gonna put me to death because I can contact familiar spirits and whatnot." He was like, "Nah, don't worry about it. I'm gonna make an exception of you if you just go ahead and talk to Samuel for me." So she did it, and Samuel basically like, "Hey, you woke me up for this? What's wrong with you? You know you're not supposed to be doing this." And so for that and for other transgressions, the Most High put him to death. This is the reason why Saul died the way he died, because of this. And then he turned over the kingdom to David. We're going to get in the last 7. First Chronicles chapter 11, verse 1. Yeah.
In the Hebrew, First Chronicles chapter 11, verse 1. Wayaka Batazawa, Kal, Yashara Allah, Al, Dawayad, Kabarawanaya, Waya Ra Wana, La Amar, Hana, I Tazamak, Wabashakar, Sarak, Anakanawa, verse 2. Gum, Damawal, Gum, Shala Shawam, Gum, Bahaya Waf, Sha'awal, Malak, Aitha, Atha, Hamawataza Ya, Wahama Baya, Waha.
So hold on. Pronounce the last A with that as well. Babakasha.
So like the Waha Mabaya Ya. Come on. So I'm doing it again. Waha Mabaya
Most High Christ.
Yashara Allah. Waya Amar. Yahweh. Allah Hayak. Laka. Ataha. It's like Atha. Dara'ayim. Imaya. Yashara Allah. Wa'atha. Tahaya. Nagayad. Al. Amaya. Yashara Allah. Verse 3. Waya Ba'awa. Kal. Zakonaya. Yashara Allah. Al. Hamalak. Kabara Wana. Waya Karath. Laham. Dawayat. Baryath. Baka. Barwan. Lapanaya. Sorry, Lapanya. Yahweh. Waya Mashakawa. Dawayat. Lamalak. Al. Yashara Allah. Kadabar. Yahweh. Bayad. Yama Sham Mawa'al. Verse 4. Wayakal. Dawayad.
One more time.
Oh, Salaki. Verse 4. Wayalak. Dawayad. Walak. Yashara Allah. Yara wa Shalom. Haya. Haya'ah. Yabawas. Washam. Hayaba Wasaya. Washabaya. Ha'arataza. Verse 5. Waya Amara. Wayashabia. Yabawas. Lada Wayad. La'ah. Tabawa'ah. Hana. Salaki. Waya Lakad. Dawayad. Ma Tazadah. Taza Yawan. Haya'ah. Izar. Dawayad. Verse 6.
Come on. Let me get the last.
Come.
6 and 7.
Oh, me? Come. Verse 6. Waya Amar. Dawayad. Maka, Maka'a, yeah, Maka, Maka, Yaba was Saya, Bara Shawa Na, Yahaya, Lara Ash, Walasha, Waya Al, Bara Ash, Wana, Yawa Al, Ban, Tazaro, Waya, Wayahaya, Lara Ash, verse 7. Wayasha, the Wayad, Bama Tazar, Al, Kana, Okan, Quora Awa, Lawa, Ayah, the Wayad.
Most High in Christ. Let's continue on in English.
Chapter 11, verse 1.
First Chronicles chapter 11, verse 1. Then all Israel gathered themselves together to David unto Hebron, saying, Behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. Verse 2. And moreover, in times past, even when Saul was king, thou wast he that led us out and brought us in Israel. And the Lord thy God said unto thee, Thou shalt feed my people Israel, and thou shalt be ruler over my people. Verse 3. Therefore came all the elders of Israel to the king of Hebron, and David made a covenant with them in Hebron.
Read that from the top one time.
Verse 3. Therefore came all the elders of Israel to the king of Hebron, and David. Therefore came all the elders of Israel to the king to Hebron. Come. And David made a covenant with them in Hebron before the Lord. And they anointed David king over Israel, according to the word of the Lord by Samuel. Verse 4. And David and all Israel went to Jerusalem, which is Jebus, where the Jebusites were, the inhabitants of the land. Verse 5. And the inhabitants of Jebus said to David, Thou shalt not come hither. Nevertheless, David took the castle of Zion, which is the city of David. Verse 6. And David said, Whosoever smiteth the Jebusites first shall be chief and captain. So Joab, the son of Zeruiah, went first up, and was chief.
So, how do you become chief? Anybody? How do you become chief, sis?
By killing the Jebusites.
Most High in Christ. Keep going.
Verse 7. And David dwelt in the castle, therefore they called it the city of David.
Most High in Christ. They called it the city of David. Before we close it out, anybody have any last questions, comments, concerns? All right, it's on you.
The mic was me to stand.
La Yasha'ala.
I'm sorry. I imagine which means to stand. YAHANNA, which means turn to face the east. We're going to say the Lord's Prayer in Hebrew. Repeat after me. Abanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, I.S.U.P.K, Yahweh, Malakwavka, Laba'ah, Batzayaka, I.S.U.P.K, Baharatazah, Kawak, I.S.U.P.K, the thunder now, the come, Cow, the one, Wasalaki now, Kabawaki now, Kasalaki now, Kabawaki now, Wala'ah, Taba'aya now, Banasaya one, Abal, Hawashaya now, Mayan, Right, Kaya, Lakab, Amalakwa, Waha'ala, Wataparu, Wahala, La'ayam, Aman.
In the English, our Father,
which art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. In earth, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our debts. As we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation. But deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom. And the power. And the glory. Forever. So be it.
We're going to say Hakak the power in Hebrew. Repeat after me. Yahweh. Ba'ashem. Yahushua. Baba Kasha. The thunder now. Hakak. La Rapa'ah. Kalmakala. Wakal Marawa. Hakak. La Tahar. Hamatazariah. Hakak. Lahakwi. Hamathia. Hakak. Arakawa. Hatama'ala. Lagarashan. Ba'ashem Yahushua. Wada
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
In the name of Yahushua. Please give us the power. The power to heal. All manner of sickness. And all manner of disease. The power to cleanse the lepers. The power to raise the dead. The power against unclean spirits. To cast them out. In the name of Yahushua. Thank you. So be it.
We're going to say, bless Israel. Repeat after me. Yahweh. Ba'ashem. Yahushua. Barakallahu. Oyasha'ala. Wahabaya. Sapari. Barak. Rapah. Magun. Ba'ashem Yahushua. The water Aman.
In the English. Yahweh. In the name of Yahushua. Bless us. And Israel. And the school. Bless. Heal. Shield. Protect. Our loved ones. In the name of Yahushua. Thank you. So be it.
We're going to say Psalms 121 in the Hebrew. Asha'ah. Ayanya. Ahahari. Ma'ayan. Yaba'ah. Izari. Ma'ayin. Yahweh. I.S.U.P.K. Shamayim. Waharatazah. Ayathan. Lamawat. Regalka. Al-Yawam. Al-Yanawam. Shamaraka. Hana. La'ah. Yanawam. Wala'ah. Yayashan. Shawamar. Yasha'ala. Yahweh. Shamaraka. Yahweh. Tazaka. Ayan. Yamyaka. Yawamam. Hashamash. La'ah. La'ah. Yakah. La'ah. Yakaka. Wayarak. Balayala. Yahweh. Yashamaraka. Makarai. Yashamar. Atnapashka. Yahweh. Yamaru. Yashamar.
Yashamar.
Taza'atka.
Taza'atka.
Wama'atka.
Wa'atka.
Ma'aita.
Ma'aita.
Wa'alamiyam.
Wa'alamiyam.
Tawaraman. Wa'awalam.
Wa'awalam.
Tawaraman.
Tawaraman. In the English. I will lift up mine eyes into the hills.
I will lift up mine eyes into the hills.
From whence cometh my help?
From whence cometh my help?
My help cometh from Yahweh.
My help cometh from Yahweh.
Which made heaven and earth.
Which made heaven and earth.
He will not suffer thy foot to be moved.
He cannot suffer thy foot to be moved.
He that keepeth thee.
He that keepeth thee.
Will not slumber.
Will not slumber.
Behold.
Behold.
He that keepeth Israel.
He that keepeth Israel.
Shall neither slumber nor sleep.
Shall neither slumber nor sleep.
Yahweh is thy keeper.
Yahweh is thy keeper.
Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand.
Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand.
The sun shall not smite thee by day.
The sun shall not smite thee by day.
Nor the moon by night.
Nor the moon by night.
Yahweh shall preserve thee.
Yahweh shall preserve thee.
From all evil.
From all evil.
He shall preserve thy soul.
He shall preserve thy soul.
Yahweh shall preserve thy going out.
Yahweh shall preserve thy going out.
And thy coming in.
And thy coming in.
From this time forth.
From this time forth.
And even forevermore.
And even forevermore.
So be it.
So be it. We're going to say Psalm 83 in the Hebrew. Alahayim.
Alahayim.
Al-Damayalaka.
Al-Damayalaka.
Al-Dakarash.
Al-Dakarash.
Al-Dashakwat.
Al-Dashakwat.
Al. Kayahanna.
Yahanna.
Slaki. Abu-Yabika.
Yabika.
Al-Hamayawan. Yahamayawan.
Yahweh.
Wamashanayaka.
Wamashanayaka.
Nasha'awa.
Nasha'awa.
Ra'ash.
Ra'ash.
Al-Aimaka.
Al-Aimaka.
Ya'ira
Ya'ariyama.
Ra'ari Slaki. Ra'ari Yamwa.
Ya'ariyama.
Sawad.
Sawad.
Yawa Taza'aiwa. Slaki. Waya Taza'ai. Slaki. One more time. Waya Taza'aitazawa. Al-Tazapawanyaka. Amarawa. Lakawa. Wanakakida. Magawa. Wala'a. Yazarka. Yazakar. Shamyashala. Iwad. Kaya. Nawa'aitazawa. La. Yakadwa. Al-Yaka. Bayath. Yakarwath. Ahaliya. Adawam. Wayashma'alim. Wa'aba. Wa'ma'aba. Wahagari. Gabal. Wa'aimawan. Amalak. Palashah. Imashabia. Tazawar. Gamashawar. Nalawa. Imam. Hayawat. Zarawai. Labanyalawat. Salah. Shala. Aishalaham. Kamadian. Kasaya. Sara'ah. Kayabian. Banakal. Koyashuan. Nashamadwa. Ba'ayan Da'ira. Hayawat. Daman. La'adama. Shayatamba. Nadayamawa. Kara. Kaza'aba. Wakaza'aba. Wakazabak. Kanasaya Kamwa. Ashar. Amarwa. Naba Aisha. Nayarasha. Lanawa. Na'awa. Alahaya. Shayatamba. Kagagala. Kakwash. Lapanya Rakat. Ka'ash. Laba Ira. Wala Wakala Haba. Talahat. Haryam. Khan. Tharadatma. Basa Irika. Wabasa Wapaka. Tabahalam. Mala'a. Panyaham. Kwalawan. Wayabashua. Wayabakwashua. Shaka. Yahweh. Yabashua. Wayaba'alya. Ajai. Wayakapara. Wayabadwa. Waya Abadwa. What's like? Why you at the Iowa?
Why you at the Iowa?
Kaya.
Kaya.
Atha. Shaka. Yahweh.
Labaka.
Labaka. Ayawam.
Ayawan.
Alka Ratiza. The Wadaman.
Keep not thy silence, O Yahweh.
Keep not thy silence, O Yahweh.
Hold not thy peace.
Hold not thy peace.
And be not still.
And be not still.
O Yahweh.
O Yahweh.
For lo, thy enemies make a tumult.
Thy enemies make a tumult.
And they that hate thee.
And they that hate thee.
Have lifted up the head.
Have lifted up the head.
They have taken crafty counsel.
They have taken crafty counsel.
Against thy people.
Against thy people.
They consulted against thy hidden ones.
They consulted against thy hidden ones.
They have said.
Come.
And let us cut them off.
And let us cut them off.
From being a nation.
From being a nation.
That the name of Israel.
That the name of Israel.
May be no more remembered.
May be no more remembered.
For they are consulted together.
For they are consulted together.
With one consent.
With one consent.
They are confederate against thee.
They are confederate against thee.
The tabernacles of Edom.
The tabernacles of Edom.
And Ishmaelites.
And Ishmaelites.
Of Moab. And Hagarim.
And Hagarim.
Gebal and Ammon.
Gebal and Ammon.
And Amalek.
And Amalek.
The Philistines.
With
the inhabitants of Tyre.
With the inhabitants of Tyre.
Asher is also joined with them.
Asher is also joined with them.
They have hope in the children of Lot.
They have hope in the children of Lot.
Salah. Do unto them.
Do unto them.
As unto the Midianites.
As unto the Midianites.
As to Sisera.
As to Sisera.
As to Jabin.
As to Jabin.
At the brook of Kishon.
At the brook of Kishon.
Which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth.
They became as dung for the earth.
Make their nobles like a red.
Make their nobles like a red.
And like the egg.
And like the egg.
Yea. All their princes. As Sabbath. And as Amunah.
And as Amunah.
Who said.
Let
us take to ourselves.
Let us take to ourselves.
The house of Yahweh in possession.
The houses of Yahweh in possession.
Hold my power.
Hold my power.
Make them like a wheel.
Make them like a wheel.
As a stubble before the wind.
As a stubble before the wind.
As the fire burneth the wood.
As the fire burneth the wood.
And as the flame set the mountains on fire.
And as the flame set the mountains on fire.
So persecute them.
With
thy tempest. And make them afraid. With thy storm. Fill their faces with shame. That they may seek thy name. O Yahweh. Let them be confounded. And trouble. And trouble forever. Yea. Let them be put to shame. And perish. That men may know. That thou. Whose name alone. Is Yahweh. Art the most high. Over all the earth. So be it.
We're going to say the blessings. Barakatha Yahweh. Why Yahweh Shai. Why Mayaka Allah. Why Alahayim. Matazabaya. Alawap Yahanna. Ha Alawapim. Ha Sarayim. Ha Kwatasayayim. Why Kwa. Ha Kwahayoyim. Waha Akawapian. Yahweh. Ba'ashem. Yahweh Shai. The Wadaman.
In English. Bless you, Yahweh.
And
Yahweh Shai. And Michael. And the angels. Commanding General Yohanan. The general. The captain. The officers. The troopers. And the assistants. Yahweh. In the name of Yahweh Shai. Thank you. So be it. We're going to say the curses. Bless are you, Yahweh. King of heaven and earth. And all things living. Yahweh. In the name of Yahweh Shai. Listen to us now. Right now. Sin evils and curses. And punishments and destruction. To the heathen. That speak against us. Thy prophet. The teachers. The princes. The priests. The Israelite brothers. And the schools. Sin evils and curses. And punishment and destruction. To the heathen. And shake loose. The treasures of the rich. Of Israel. That refuse to give to the school. Force their riches. To enter into thy sanctuary. Sin evils and curses. Punishment and destruction. To the Edomites. And the nation. And the drug dealers. The court system. The prison system. Planned Parenthood. All the governments of our enemies. Amalek synagogues and armies. Roman Catholic Church. The Pope. Islam. Christianity. Egyptology. Militia. Ku Klux Klan. Aryan Nation. Skinheads. Posse Comitatus. Gay movement. The lesbian movement. Spies. Workers of witchcraft. NASA space program. Army. Navy. Air Force. Marines. Wall Street. Open up the internet. And the airways. The cable access channel. And the radio channel. Convict the spirit of any of thy people. That seek to stop us. And bring swift destruction. destruction.
And bring swift destruction
To all the heathen.
to all the heathen
that stand in our way.
that stand in our way.
Or try to stop
Or
us.
try to stop us
From broadcasting your word.
broadcasting your word
Throughout the planet Earth.
throughout the planet Earth.
Let loose all the plagues.
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 Cause them to go.
Cause them to go
To and fro.
to and fro
Through the earth.
through the earth.
And consume them.
And consume them.
Let the plagues.
Let the plague
Shake the house of the thief.
shake the house of the thief
And the murderer.
and the murderer.
Let YAHANNA.
Let YAHANNA.
Michael and Gabriel.
Michael and Gabriel
Come down with the flying
come
saucers.
down with the flying sauce
And punish all the heathen.
and punish all the heathen
That come up against us.
that come up against
As
us
we speak thy word.
as we speak thy word.
Cause it to be known.
Cause it to be known
By all.
by all
That it is the angels that have done
that
it.
is the angels that have done it.
Cause it to be spread.
Cause it to be spread
Through the media.
through the media
Throughout the whole world.
throughout the whole world.
Cause them to shake at thy coming.
Cause it to shake it thy coming.
In the name of YAHANNA.
In the name of YAHANNA.
Thank you always.
Thank you always.
So be it.
So be it. Sorry, which means to turn. Men of Israel, our sisters be seated. Men of Israel, get up thy Lord to prepare to salute the Torah.
Yahweh Shem Yahshua
Yahweh Shem Yahshua Brakiyah. We're going to get men of Israel, we're going to give word and courtesy salute to the teacher. Men of Israel, Amajim Shabbat, Amajim, Barak, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahshua Brakiyah.
Yahweh Shem Yahshua Brakitham.
Yazamatah, Sar, which means to turn. Sisters, you may stand. Men of Israel, we're going to give one courtesy salute to the sister. Men of Israel, Amajim Shabbat, Amajim, Barak, Yahweh Shema Aladah Ba'Shem Yahshua.
Yahweh Shema Aladah Ba'Shem Yahshua.
Yazamatah, class dismissed.